I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV. Our guest today is Michael Glowacki, who really needs no introduction. He has been a man about town in the most positive sense for a number of years, former selectman, presently a real estate agent, and a member of the Conservation Commission. And I know there are a number of things we want to talk about, but let's talk about that first, because at the moment the Conservation Commission is playing a big role in terms of the Sconset Beach preservation effort. And what's your take on that?
Whew. It's a little tricky to talk about because that particular case is under appeal right now. There'll be litigation. The commission voted not to approve a notice of intent for an order of conditions for the project as it is currently installed. You probably know that I was in the minority. I was in favor of
leaving it alone.
Pretty much the way it is right now.
Right.
And the commission has voted otherwise, and so that's the stance of the Conservation Commission now.
Okay, that's fine. I sort of expected you might say something like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of beach preservation efforts generally, what is your view on whether, one, they work, and two, how they can be mitigated, whether they can be mitigated so they don't affect.
Right. So that's the nexus of the thing.
That's right.
In beach preservation, or say erosion control, there's no question that erosion control can work. I mean, look at Logan Airport or Manhattan Island, but you can stabilize the shoreline. There's no question about that. Do you want to? Is an open question, and what other interests are at play is an open question. So under our current regulatory standards, when you have a coastal bank or a bluff, and that has a very technical, specific definition of something, that's what it is. It protects certain interests under the law. And it protects the interest of, it's a vertical buffer to storm damage. And that's a function that is protected. It also provides sediment to the beach. And so as a bluff erodes, sediment goes to the beach, it creates a beach, and all these things are interrelated. We sort of follow all that. So you have two interests protected under the law that can be mutually exclusive in a high energy sort of environment. Eventually, the law will evolve to a point that prioritizes or clarifies that, and right now it doesn't. So when somebody comes before the Conservation Commission, and well, to back up, these laws all went into effect in the late 70s. We learned things about how this all works, and there are places where you wouldn't build houses now. Nobody's going to build a house on Great Point or the end of Smith Point because you can't do that and protect all the interests. But what happens is we have properties that were built years and years ago, turn of the century, 100-year-old Nantucket houses. And so in some of those, the erosion has been hundreds of feet of shoreline have vanished, and so owners are saying, gee, I'd like to try to do something. And so the law doesn't put one interest over the other. Typically, an applicant will come in and say, okay, we want to enhance the buffer to storm damage and not have our house wash overboard. And we'll look at all the alternatives on the Conservation Commission. Is there room on your lot to move the house and that sort of thing? And if there is, isn't that a better thing to do? But if there is not, then can the commission find that it is one interest versus the other, or can the commission find that you can do the vertical buffer, you can do something, and then you can mitigate by, if the bank is providing so much sediment per year, you can dump so much sand overboard. What seems to happen is, there's, like anything else, there's lots of views. People are sort of across a spectrum, and I guess I should leave it at that.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
That's fair. All right. I wanted to ask you about something else that's probably not on your list, but before we get to your list, real estate market, and particularly the issue of housing. And I don't mean affordable in the legal sense, but I mean in a practical sense, affordable housing for whether it be rental or purchased housing. So the middle class is again becoming an issue on Nantucket as real estate prices change, as people convert buildings that have been used for year-round rentals into seasonal rentals because they can make more money. How is this all going to play out? Nantucket zones against apartments.
Yeah.
So there is not currently that option. What are people going to do?
Well, maybe there will be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just to understand the question there, I don't know. I haven't seen the trend of people turning year-round rentals into seasonal rentals to make more money, and I don't know anybody who makes money on a seasonal rental. I don't know of any.
I know people who make lots of money on the seasonal rentals.
You live in a different neighborhood.
No, not in my neighborhood.
I mean, there are seasonal rentals
No.
that are very pricey, but those are houses that require
No, they're second dwellings.
second dwellings,
Yes.
seasonally rented,
Yes.
and it's a net income.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, I know quite a few people who do that and feel as though it's an investment over time and an appreciating
Yeah,
market.
it's a combination, as in any real estate investment, it's a combination of factors. But if they can rent a house for $6,000 a week for 10 weeks in the summer, and instead of $3,000 a month for 12 months, obviously they're a lot better off. In a cash flow basis.
Lots of reasons why.
Right.
So maybe the zoning bylaw has something to do with that. Maybe we do need apartments. Most communities, there's an area where you could go and rent an apartment, and that a certain strata is in the apartments, and then that frees up a certain amount of the housing, and it all sorts itself. Basically, it's supply and demand is what the answer is, I think. And so we either increase the supply, reduce the demand, or fiddle around with it. That's where the labels come in.
That's where the fiddling comes in.
The fiddling and
fiddling ends up being the answer, I'm afraid.
Yes, the role of government. Here we go.
Right.